Hello and welcome to this training session from Software. Today we will be covering using InfoPath to create a project intake process, a request form, and we'll be leveraging some of the SharePoint services as well. I'm your presenter Faisal Masood, accompanied by Yasir Masood, and we'll be presenting that solution to you guys. So this is part of the setup that we have this virtual lab where we are going to configure the project server and the SharePoint 2013, and then we will leverage the SharePoint BCS, the Business Data Connectivity Services, to pull the data from PWA custom lookup tables. So here you can see this is our SharePoint site, and this is called PPM Project Request. That's the title of the site. And let's go ahead quickly and we'll go to the Project Web Access here. So here you can see the homepage of the Project Web Access. And you can notice it's the URL is the server name /PWA. Let's switch back to the SharePoint site. Now, the one thing, as part of this whole process, first thing we have to set up a few things. So let's look at our overall process chart. So this is the Visio process we have created as part of the solution creation for this video and the session. So first thing, we have to create a site, then we have to create a InfoPath library called Project Request, and then we have to publish the form to the SharePoint site. And in the next step, then we have to follow and create a lookup table in Project Web Access, which we will be pulling the data from into our InfoPath. And then there are a few other steps involved as well, where we'll be setting up external content type, and we'll be using SharePoint services that includes the Business Data Connectivity Services and Secure Store Services. And we'll be setting that up using the external content type. We'll be setting that up using the SharePoint Designer. Then at the end, we'll create an external list, and then we'll populate the values in an InfoPath field using that external list. So this is the overall process. So let's go ahead, and first thing first, we'll come to our site and click on the gear on the top right, and then we'll choose Add an App option. Then once we are on the Your Apps page, then we'll scroll down and select Form library, and we'll create that one in our SharePoint site, the one we have planned for the solution. So under adding form library prompt, we'll click on Advanced option, and that will bring us to this page where we can define the name, description. We'll turn on the versioning, and we'll click Create button. And that has created our InfoPath form library, the one we'll be using. So we have covered this first two steps, so let's move on to the next step, where we'll be creating InfoPath form and then publish it to the SharePoint site. So to do that, let's go ahead and launch SharePoint Designer. And SharePoint Designer, launch InfoPath Designer. InfoPath Designer is an application which is used to create the forms, and then we can use InfoPath Filler application to fill those out. And those two applications, InfoPath Designer and InfoPath Filler, those are part of the Office suite of applications. And we have the 2013 version of the Office on these on this system. So as you can see, we have those Designer and the Filler apps. So currently we are in the Designer. So from the template, we'll choose SharePoint library and click Design Form, which brings us a template we can start with. So in the top section, we can put the title, So here we'll just go ahead and enter the title of the form just to describe the form, what it is about. So we'll call it project management project request form. And then let's go ahead and split the top section into 2 columns. And then we'll move the title on the right hand side, and that will give us a little more space on the left cell, empty cell. That's where we'll just go ahead and add our logo, just to make the form look a little more elegant. So here we are with the form title and a picture there. So let's come down to the next section where we have where we can define a couple of InfoPath fields there. So let's first go ahead and put a title to the heading. So as part of this project request process, think of it like if the top section need to be filled in by the business users who will be submitting the request or inputting their information related to their project need. The bottom section, after the business users have filled in, will be updated by the PMO. So once we have defined the sections, now we can add the control. So we can use the control section and expand, and you can see there are different options for us. We can use those options, or we can right click on the right hand side under the field section where it says my fields group. We can choose add, then we can put a name for the field, like here we are putting project name. And if we will have a lot of fields in different sections, so we can technically group those into the folders by using the group option. But for now, we'll just leave that as field. And then optionally, we can change the data type here, but we'll leave that setting as is. And then we can make the field as required as well by checking the box. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see it adds the field with the red asterisk at the end of it, telling that it's a required. So let's look into the properties of the field, and here you can see there are a few settings on different tabs, data, merge, and detail tab, and we can set a default value for the field here as well. So we're not going to configure it here, so we'll leave that. Now let's drag the field and we'll drop it on the form. So as we drop it, the title of the field is on the left cell, and the control itself has been copied over on the right hand side under the add controls cell. Now we can apply the formatting to the fields. Say if you want to put an asterisk, and we change the color for it, just to tell the users that it's a required field. And we can apply different sort or different font color sizes and options. Now let's pick here a date picker field, and as we add that control, it has added a field on the right hand side. Let's delete that one. Let's go ahead and select the area on the form and then use the date picker field. Now we'll put a title and we'll call it request date. Now we'll right click on the field on the right hand side and change the name there, and we'll call it request date. Make sure we don't have any gap in between the letters, otherwise the InfoPath won't accept that as a field name. So we'll just go ahead and click OK, and you can see we do have option to change the data type to date, time, or we'll leave that setting as is for now. Now let's go ahead to the control section again, and let's pick, this time we are going to pick, say we want to add maybe a rich text box. So it has added at the end, maybe not. Let's delete that one. Let's think through how, let's minimize this. Okay. All right. So with the areas selected on the form, we'll just go ahead and add a checkbox control. as you can see on the screen. So we will call this checkbox cost more than 1 million. So it's more of a question to the user submitting the form. So we'll right click on the field on the right hand side and change the field name. And let's go ahead and add another control, and this time let's say put a text control, and let's go ahead and set up or change the control for this control on the InfoPath designer. So we'll change it to the drop down, and then we'll put a division or department as the title. So we'll rename the field on the right hand side as well. And you can see the data type is set to text string, so we can leave that. Now we can right click, and you can see we have the option to change the control type to any other type. And at the bottom, we have the option to view the properties of the control as well. So as we pick a control type, it automatically displays the title at the bottom of this menu. That this is the option to go to the properties of that control. So the drop down list box property control has these options. So we can, if we want to make a values within this field as required, so we can check the box which says cannot be blank. Now list box choices option is set to enter choices manually, so which will maintain the values within the form within this field. The second option, get choices from fields in another from fields in another form, it pulls from other field. And the third option we can use to pull the values from external data sources. So we'll keep the first choice to manually maintain the choices within this field, and we'll just click the add button and quickly add a couple of choices which we would like our users to see when they pick this department as the drop down value. So here you can see we are putting these values. Once we are done, we'll just click apply, and you can go through the other tabs to set the size, the width, the left and the top and the bottom margin, or also the width in percentage versus in other units. You can go to the advanced tab, and under the accessibility you can see the screen tip field. It is helpful to add some kind of text which the users will see when they hover the mouse over this field in the InfoPath filler. So we'll just put small text there, select a department. Now under the merge setting, there are options to merge the form field. So we'll just for now just skip that section. And also the last tab is about the browser forms. So we can set those settings based on the needs, but for the sake of this demo, we'll just skip it, click apply, and then we'll click OK. And there it is, our department drop-down field has been added. Now we'll go ahead, and this time we are going to pick, let's say, we'll click on the control section on the form, and this time let's go and pick this field, and we'll rename it. We'll call it priority. So say the projects the users will be submitting, they have to select a priority, high, medium, low. So now for the control, we'll right click and choose combo box properties, or we can change the type of the form as well. But for now, let's go ahead and click the properties, and then let's go ahead and quickly define high, medium, and low as the 3 values or choices within this combo box. And again, we can adjust the size, advanced setting, or browser setting, and click OK. Now, the one last field which we would like to add is the person or group. So this is basically the SharePoint people picker. So once we add it on the form, notice on the right hand side under the fields section that how it adds the group, and then it adds those three fields: display name, account ID, and the account type. So those are part of the people picker. So in the title for this people picker, we'll just call that one out as business sponsor. So say whoever is submitting the form, they need to pick a name of a person who will be designated as the sponsor for this proposed project. So here, if we right click and choose person/group picker properties, now you can see there are different options. So we can, on the second tab, we can the SharePoint server tab, we can put the URL of the SharePoint server from which the people picker will be showing the list of peoples available. Now under the general section, we have the option to choose a multiple selection. We can pick people only or people and group, and we also have the option to choose people from all the user within the SharePoint, or we can point this field, InfoPath field, to a specific SharePoint group as well. But for that to work, we have to specify the name of the URL address of the server as well, and then it will show the SharePoint groups which are available within that site. So for now, let's leave it to people only and all users just for simplicity, and we'll just go ahead and click OK. Now, so far, everything looks good on our form. So we have added all the business user input sections. So now we'll just go ahead and save our form, InfoPath form, to our local system. And we'll call it software PPM project intake solution. Let's rename it PPM project intake request form. Now in the save as type option, we have the option to choose a different option. A different type. We can make it as InfoPath filler only form, or we can make it compatible with the 2010 or 2007 version, or even 2003 version of the InfoPath forms as well. And notice there is a web version option between each. So for now, we'll just keep it as 2013 version, and we'll just click save. Now we have done all this work. So before proceeding, let's preview the form and see how the changes will look for the user. So there's a preview button on the right hand side of the form within the InfoPath window. So here it brings the form in the InfoPath filler application and displays how the form is going to look like. Here you can see the date picker is working as a truly date picker. The department is showing all those departments which we listed as the choices. All right, we forgot to put a title for this priority field. So here we have our values: high, medium, low, and then the business sponsor, which is the SharePoint people picker. It is displayed there as well. And since this is not deployed on the SharePoint yet, so this people picker, it's not going to work in the preview. So let's go ahead and close the preview, and which will bring us back to the InfoPath designer. And let's go ahead and put a label to the priority field. We'll call it project priority. All right, now let's go ahead and add some fields under the PMO input section. Now here we'll add a checkbox, call it approved, and that is for the PMO to approve the request submitted by the business users. Now let's go ahead and add another control. Let's say, for example, we want to add, let's first select the control area where we want to add, and this time we'll add this description field, which is the rich text box field. So we'll just call it description, just so that during the approval process, PMO can put a description that why it was approved, or whatever questions they might have. Let's review the rich text box properties here. So you can see within the display tab we have the option to wrap the text. We have the spell checkers, and we can make it as a read-only field as well with some text defined in it. So for now, let's leave the bottom section as is, and let's preview the form. And here you can see the project priority title has came over fine. Now the approved and description field are showing correctly. And let's look into the red asterisk we added under project name. Actually, InfoPath automatically adds a red asterisk within the control, so we'll go ahead and remove that asterisk from the title of the project name field. All right, so here this is how our form looks like as of now. But let's look into the data section. Click on the data tab in the ribbon, and you can see there is a submit option which allows the users to hit the submit button, and that will take action based on whatever action we'll define for the button here. So we'll check the box which says allow users to submit this form, and then from send from data to a single destination, we'll choose SharePoint document library. Currently we don't have a connection defined here, so we'll click add, and that will bring the data connection wizard. In the data library, in the document library, we'll go ahead and we'll go back to our SharePoint and copy the link of the InfoPath library which we created. Now we'll remove everything after the name of the library, which is forms / the page name. So we'll come back to our data connection wizard and paste the link of the library there. Now in the file name, you can see it is going to submit all the forms with the name of form. But just to distinguish different projects, we have to uniquely name each of the requests submitted within the library. So the best option is we can use the concatenate option to use existing fields on the form, and with the combination of those fields we can create a unique name. So let's click on the formula button, and here let's click on insert function, and from the list of functions we'll choose concatenate. Click OK, and that gives us here options. So we'll click on the first one to insert a field, which will show us all the fields or groups which we have already defined in our InfoPath form. So let's go ahead and click project name, and then for the second option within the concatenate, let's choose request date, and for the third one let's go ahead and pick priority. We'll hit the verify formula, which confirms us that everything looks okay. Now here is our formula, which will create the unique name automatically. Now this will make sure that each request has a little bit of descriptive and unique name. Now we'll go ahead and check the box which says allow overwrite if the file exists. So we want to make sure if the same name comes over, it gets overwritten, and we have already enabled the versioning, so we should be fine with that, so we don't lose the data. So as long as we have of course the unique file name within our concatenate, it should work. So let's click next. On the next screen we can put a name for this data connection, which by default is main submit. At the bottom it shows summary. We can just click finish, and here is our main submit data connection. Now we can click on the advanced, and there are a few options here. So there is an option to display a message when the submission fails, and we'll check the option to display a message when the form is successfully submitted. And at the bottom we have the option like after submission what action we want to take. The default is closing the form, but we can open a new form, leave the form open, but we'll leave the default selection and click OK. I will just go ahead and click save to save our changes in the InfoPath. All right, so far we've done a lot of changes in our InfoPath. Now let's move back to our Visio process. So we have created the library. In the next step, we have been creating the InfoPath. Now the next step is we have to, before we publish, we would like to review the form options. So if you go to the file info, you can see form option. If you click on it, it brings the form option dialog box where we have different category on the left, and as we click on those category, it displays different options we can set up. So let's uncheck the save as option. We would like to include the update option for the filler feature, which is like if people open the form in the desktop filler. So we can leave some of these settings as well. Property promotion. Well, that's the option on the top section where we can define whatever fields are set up in the InfoPath. We can promote those fields as SharePoint columns once this form is published in SharePoint. So we'll click add and pick the fields which we would like to be promoted as SharePoint columns. So we'll add pretty much all the important fields. And here for the for this people picker, we have some options here. So for now we'll just leave that. At the bottom section, which says SharePoint web part connection parameters, we can add some of these fields which will be available within the SharePoint as web part parameter. But we'll leave that. We'll leave some of these settings under digital signatures, security and trust. Okay, under the preview, we have options as well. So we can technically just copy over the address of our web application, which where we'll be publishing this form. We can leave those settings. Under the programming, we can choose the C# or VB as the language, and we can pick a target version between 2013, 2010, and 2007. And then there's a location for the code as well. Under the compatibility, that's the important section. The form type is by default set to the web browser form, and that's the one we want to use because we will be publishing it to the SharePoint and make it available as a web version of the form, just so that people can fill in within the browser. They don't have to have the InfoPath filler on their desktop. Now at the bottom, we can put the name of our site collection. In this case, it's the root site collection, so we'll just put the name of that site collection there. It will use the web services from that location. And we'll leave the versioning. Under the advanced, we have options. If we choose the added default values, we can select our fields and set default values, but we'll just click OK. And that brings us back to the InfoPath. Now, if we go to the file info, now let's look at the design checker. Design checker is an option which, based on the form and where on which server we'll be publishing it, it will try to see if there are any issues with the form. So if you click on the change setting, you can see it brings us back to the compatibility page. And notice it has automatically added the web services information within that field area. So we'll just cancel out from there. We'll close the design checker. And now we'll just go ahead to the file menu, and this time we'll click publish SharePoint server as the option. And we have the option to publish to network or email. So in the wizard screen, we'll put this website address. We'll choose the site content type advanced. Here we have to keep the default. This is the first time we are publishing it, and we want to create a new content type. So we'll go ahead and click next. We'll put a name and the description for the SharePoint content type that will be created. Now in the next screen, we can specify, click browse button, and there's a form templates library under SharePoint sites. We can save our template form there and click next. The next screen will show the same screen we went through a few minutes back regarding promoting different fields to SharePoint columns, and at the bottom the web part connection parameter options. So we will not make any change here. We'll leave those as default and click next. Then the next screen will show us the summary. We'll adjust the connection by checking the box and click publish. And you can see now it is publishing the form to the server, and here you go. It has been successfully published. And then you can notice there are two links, one for the content type and the other one to preview this form in the browser. And we can click on the first link, which basically will take us to the content type page for the content type it has created. So you can notice the name, description, and here you go. All the InfoPath fields have been promoted as SharePoint columns, and those are part of the content type. Now if you go back to the page, we can click on open this form in the browser to preview the form, how it is going to look like in the browser. And there you go. You can see the form is correctly displaying the information within the browser. And that's pretty much what we wanted. So you can review the fields, some of the options there. And for now, we'll just close this form in the browser, and we'll close the wizard. And now we have successfully completed our InfoPath form. We have designed it, we have published it to the SharePoint. Now we'll just go ahead and close the form and close the InfoPath. Now we are back to our SharePoint site. So if we refresh the form template page, here you can see it has copied over that file, the InfoPath template. And this is a library which is not displayed by default on the quick launch navigation on the left or the current navigation. But if you go to the site content, you can see it. But let's go to the project intake forms library, the one we created in the first step. Let's go to the library and click on library settings. And here basically we'll add the content type. So the first thing, we'll go to the advanced settings and we'll enable allow management of content type by setting it to yes. And also under opening documents in the browser, instead of the default, we'll set it to open in the browser setting. With this setting, we can force that whenever users click a new document button, it will open the form in the browser rather than opening up this form in the InfoPath filler. We'll click OK. And here you go. Now we can see the content types. But you can notice the form content type, that's the default content type, is displayed there. And we have to add the one which we created through the InfoPath publishing. So we'll click on add from existing site content type link. And that brings us to this page, add content type page, where we can either select the group, and that displays all the available content type at the bottom field. So here we'll go ahead and choose Microsoft InfoPath, and there you go. It displays our InfoPath content type which we published and displays the description. We'll add it to the right hand side by clicking the add button and click OK at the bottom, and that will bring us back to the library settings. And now you can notice the PPM project request intake content type is displayed in the list of content types. Now one thing you can notice, the form, the default content type, which is not the one we want. So we'll change it by going to the change new button order, and we'll make our PPM project request as visible and make it as the first option, and that will make our required PPM project request intake content type as the default and the first choice. Now we'll go to the form content type and use the delete this content type option to delete it, and that will leave us only with the one content type which we created through the InfoPath publishing. So a little bit of configuration changes, which will make sense. Now let's go to the versioning, and you can see we have the versioning turned on. And here you can review the name, address, description. Let's click on the project intake title on the top, which will bring us back to the root of the library. Now if we click on the files and click on new document, in the drop down we can see our content type. We can also click on the new document link, and in either way it is going to bring the new form. So here you can see the form we designed, it is displayed correctly. And now we'll just go ahead and quickly add some data to the form just to test whether we can successfully submit it or not. So we'll put a project name, we'll call it Software Collaboration Portal. For the request date, we'll specify date, cost, more than $1 million, of course not, it's not more than $1 million. Under department, we'll pick a department which is relevant, we'll pick IT here. For the priority, say it's a high priority project. From the business sponsor, you can see you can just type the name of the person and hit the check person name, but in this case actually we don't have the last name, first name, we have the first name last name format. There you go. So if you put a first name of the person, it will suggest, and or you can click the browse button next to the field, and then on the select people dialog box you can either search by first or last name and then hit the search button, which will return the results, and then you can pick the person here. So here we are picking Yasser Masood as the business sponsor. And so we have filled all those fields, and now we are done as a business user. So we'll just click the submit button, and here we are presented with this option that the form was submitted successfully. So our form has been submitted to the InfoPath forms library, and now we can just click OK to go beyond that message, and that will take us back to the InfoPath forms library. So, and that, if you remember, that's the action we defined, that on submission it should close the form. And here in the library you can see it has automatically created a name based on the project name, the date, the request date, and the priority of the project. And all the fields which we added, those are displayed, those can be displayed as SharePoint columns as well. Now you can click on the form, which will open the form again, and you can make changes. Let's say if we want to change the priority from high to medium. Now if you want to make changes, you will hit the save and then close. You will not hit the submit in this case, because submit will create a new request. And again, you can play around with the rules and the logics within your data connection and rules in InfoPath. Now here you can see we made changes, and because of the versioning we saw the versions of the document or this InfoPath request. Alright, so far we have been successfully able to publish the form and submit it. Now here we are looking at our overall process. So we have published the InfoPath form, and alright, the next step is to create a lookup table in Project Web Access, which is PPM Project Server 2013 web client. So we'll go into that application and create a lookup table. Alright, so let's click on the PWA link which we added in our SharePoint top link bar. So we'll right click and open that link in the new tab. And here you can see the Project Web Access homepage. From the homepage, we'll click on server setting on the bottom left. Then under enterprise data, we'll go ahead and click enterprise custom fields and lookup table link. And here we are presented with the custom fields on the top and lookup tables at the bottom. So first thing, we'll create a lookup table by clicking the new lookup table button. We'll just call it, say if you want to create a strategic value as a lookup table in our Project Web Access. Now we can define the code mask, but let's skip all those. Let's come down to the lookup table, and we'll add a couple of values here which we want be available as a drop down. So here we have defined these 5 values as our strategic value option within that lookup table. Now, once you define a lookup table, then you can use that lookup table in the custom field. So we'll click on new field option. We can put a name to the field, put a description. We can choose a type, either project, resource, or task. Then under custom attribute, we'll choose lookup table and point it to the strategic value lookup table, just so that this custom field can show us the values which are assigned within that lookup table. Under the behavior, we can, let's go ahead and check this option, which will allow editing on project detail pages, the PDP pages for SharePoint task list projects. We'll just click OK, and now here we have our custom field, and at the bottom we created our lookup table. So we are done with creating the logistics in our Project Web Access. Now we'll go to the SQL Server Management Studio. We'll expand the database section, and we'll try to find here the Project Web Access database related to our PWA instance. Now here, to avoid publishing issues within the InfoPath, make sure you review these 2 options which we displayed in the callout. Now from the view section, we'll try to find MSPLT underscore strategic value underscore user view, and we'll try to return the rows for that view. And there we are. Under the member column within the SQL query, you can see that it returns all those values which we defined in the custom lookup table. So that's the one we'll be using. So we know that, well, there is a view, user view, which has the option to bring over the values. So we'll minimize the SQL Management Studio. So as part of the overall process for this solution, we have created a lookup table, and now we need to move on to the next step. All right, now we'll open up SharePoint Designer, and we'll click open and specify the site address, which will open the site. Then we'll click on external content type from the site object section on the left side. Then currently you can see we don't have any external content type, so we'll click on the white space on the right and click on create external content type, which brings us to this page. We'll click on the name, and that gives us the option to modify the name. So we'll call it strategic value PWA ECT, which is external content type. So as we hit the tab key, it automatically copies the name value into the display name field as well. All right, let's come down and see the external system option, which is click here to discover external data sources. Currently, we don't have any data sources defined, so first thing we have to add a data connection. So here we'll go ahead and click add connection, which gives us 3 options for data source type: .NET, SQL, and WCF service. We'll choose SQL service and click OK. Now the next screen will ask us for the SQL Server connection information. We'll specify the server name and the database name. We'll come back to the user setting area later, but we picked up the default user identity. And now we'll expand the database. We'll expand the views. And we'll go down a little bit where we can find MSPLT views there, or the views which starts with that prefix. Now here we have expanded our strategic value, and you can see those 3 are the fields within that view. So we'll right click on our SQL view, and first time we'll choose new read list operation, which brings this wizard screen. and here we can leave everything default and click next. Under the filter parameter, we can leave everything as default and click next. Under the return parameter, we'll make some changes. Notice the errors and warnings at the bottom as well. So we have to make sure there are no errors and warnings. So we'll highlight the lookup member UID, and then under the property section on the right, we'll check the box which says map to identifier, and you can see the error is now gone. Now we'll uncheck the required option within the properties, and you can see one of the warning is removed as well. Now we will highlight the member value, and we want to show it in the picker, so we'll check that option, and you can see the other warning is gone as well. Now member description, we'll leave that as is and click the finish button, and that has added operation in our external content type. But read the message at the warning message which says the external content type does not include a read item. So we have added a read list operation, so we have to add read item operation as well. So here as a closer view, you saw that. Now we will right click on our SQL view, and this time we'll choose new read item operation. Initially we choose the new read list operation. So from this read item operation wizard screen, we'll go ahead and click next. Under the input parameter, we'll highlight the lookup member UID, and notice the errors and warnings at the bottom. So again, we have to make sure there are no errors and warnings. So we'll choose map to identifier on the property section on the right hand side, and you can see the errors and warnings have been removed. We'll leave rest of the settings as is and click next. Under return parameter, you can see there are 2 errors and warning. Section displays 2 errors. So first thing first, we'll go ahead and select lookup member ID, and then on the properties section on the right hand side, we'll check the box for map to identifier, and then we'll also go ahead and we'll uncheck the option for required, and you can see all the errors and warnings have been removed from the bottom section. Now from the member value, we'll leave everything under the member description. We can leave everything as is, and let's go ahead and click finish. Now we have added 2 operations, the read list and read item operations for that SQL view, and we can edit those operations anytime by clicking edit operations on the top. Now let's go ahead and click save button on the top, just so that our external content type changes get saved. Alright, on the left hand side, you can see now it is displaying our external content type. Now here we have the connection, or we can switch to the summary view or between the operation design view. Now we can switch the connected system, we can edit the connection properties, or we can also click on this link under next to the external system to change the connection as well. Alright, so far everything looks good, and let's go ahead and click on create list and forms, because we have created this external content type and currently we don't have any external list associated with it. But let's review the process, and as part of the process we have to create external content type, and then we have to configure SharePoint service applications, and then we have to create an external list which will be pulling the data from the external content type, and at the end we'll populate the values in the InfoPath out of that external list. So let's click on create list and form, which will present us this dialog box. We'll just go ahead and put a name of the list and the description and click OK, and that will create the list within our site. There you go, it has created the site, and under the external list section you can see it is displaying the link. Now we can click on we can highlight the external list and click on go to list, and within the designer it will take us back to the list, and then we can click on preview in browser link on the top, ribbon, which will show us the list. Now we got the BDC access denied error. Now here we created the external list and we created the external content type, but in between we have the SharePoint service applications, which are not, seems like pulling the values out of that content type. So if you click on the list again, here you can see the login error for user anti-authority /IUSR. So here let's go ahead and first we'll set up the permission within SharePoint Central Admin Business Data Connectivity Services. We'll add the form account and select all the permission and check the propagate permission to all BDCs and all the object option at the bottom. And then we'll add anti-authorities /authenticated users, just so that anyone who can authenticate, they can execute and select this external system and content types in the client applications. All right, so let's review the secure store service now. We have only set up the permission in BDC. Now we'll go to the secure store service and set up a secure store application ID. Now the first time we go there, we are presented with this message, so we have to click generate new key button to generate a passphrase. So we'll just specify a passphrase and confirm the passphrase. We need to make sure that we copy or save that information somewhere and click OK. And now you can see we can see the option to create a new application. So we'll click the new button on the top and we'll specify the name of the target application ID, display name, contact email. Under target application type, we'll choose the group as the option. And you can see we have called our application as PPM project intake. We'll leave everything and click next. On the next screen, we'll leave the default settings for the Windows username and the password. And we'll just go ahead and click next. On the next screen, we can specify the target application administrators. Here we'll go ahead and specify the farm account and whoever else needs to manage or be the admin for that target application. And under the member section, we'll go ahead and specify anti-authority /authenticated users, just so that anyone who can authenticate with the Active Directory should be able to pass through this service, secure store service application, to connect with the data sources. All right, we'll just go ahead and click OK. And let's give it, there you go. So it has created our secure store application. So we'll copy the target application name. Before actually we move out of here, we need to set the credentials for this application as well that will be used by this service application. So we'll hit the set credential by checking the box of the next to the application name, and that brings us here where we specify the SharePoint farm account, but you can use any other account which may have access to the backend data sources. We'll click OK, and there we are. We have set up all the needed configurations for the secure store. So we'll copy the name of the target application here, and here we will go back to we are back to the central admin, but we need to go back to our external content type, and we need to change the authentication option. So we have edited the content type. Now we'll click on the external system link, and you can notice now the authentication mode, it is set to user identity, and that was the first value we left. So we'll choose impersonate Windows identity, which gives us the option to specify the secure store application ID. We'll put it there, the one we copied over from secure store. Click OK. We'll save our external content type. Now we'll switch to the operation design view. Now we'll just go ahead and close the site from SharePoint Designer, and let's go back to our SharePoint site, end user site. We are on the home page. Now we'll click on the external list, and voila, now we can see our lookup table values. The project web access lookup table values are displayed in this external list. So you can see the 5 values we defined, those are correctly displaying within the external list. So just as a test, we'll go ahead to project web access. We'll click on the we'll click on the lookup table, and we'll go to the bottom lookup table section, and we'll add one new value there. Let's say we want to add merger and acquisitions as the new value. So we'll just enter it there, and then at the bottom we'll click save, and that will save our lookup table in project web access. Now we'll come back to our SharePoint site, and here we are in the external content external list. So if we just refresh the page, and there you go, you can see the merger and acquisition has been carried over into this external list as well. So we have made all the connections from A to Z work. Now let's back to the process chart. So you can see we created the external list. Out of the PWA, we were able to pull the values in that list. In between, we were using the BDC and the secure store. And now we have to work with the InfoPath form again. Now here we are back to our InfoPath form. So first thing first, we'll go to the InfoPath designer again. And of course, you need to make sure you have the local version of the InfoPath file. Make sure you save it. So here we'll add a text box control at the bottom. And let's go ahead and for the sake of testing, we'll call it strategic value. The name doesn't matter, it can be different. It doesn't have to match the lookup table name. Now we'll put a title on the left cell, and let's go ahead and right click, and now we'll change the control to to the drop down control. And now we'll right click and choose drop down list box properties. And under the data, now we'll choose the third option, which is get choices from an external data source. We'll click add button then, and which brings us to this data connection wizard screen, where we'll leave the default selection to receive the data and click next. Now on the select the data source screen, we'll go ahead and choose SharePoint library or list, and you can see we have other options as well. We'll click next here, and now in the next screen we'll specify the address of the site or the site collection, which then in the next wizard screen displays us the list of libraries, and we'll pick the external list and click next. On the next screen, it gives us the option to pick a value or a field. So we'll pick the member value because that's the one which has the values from the lookup table. So we'll leave the ascending order, and then next screen will store the copy of the data in the form. Click next. We'll check the box to automatically retrieve data when open and click finish. Here we are with our data source. We'll just click apply, and then we'll click OK. And here you can see we have added the strategic value. Now we'll just go ahead and preview the form. And if we look at the drop down, there we are. Now you can see all of our project web access lookup table values are populating this strategic value field. Now we'll go ahead and do a quick publish. Quick publish actually uses the same connection information which we used when we did the first publish. So it's relatively quick and easy. So we'll just go ahead and click OK at the end of the successful option or message. Now we'll close the form and close the InfoPath window. Now let's go back to our InfoPath list. So from the home page, we'll click on project intake, and then we can click on the form, existing form, and then you can see at the bottom it displays those options from the lookup table. So we have successfully demonstrated that we can bring over the lookup table values as the option. I hope you must have enjoyed this presentation. If you have questions, don't hesitate to contact us through our website, www.softwaretip.com.